to Robot Adventure. Children, do not watch this video. This video is made for people who like my videos and have an interest in what I'm talking about. Alright, so I'm going to wait till the people leave. Gamba! Alright, so today is September 10th, 2017. And what do I have behind me there? And there's dumbass Rodimus. And behind him is that Mary Carey? So today I want to talk about making your dreams into reality. So like I said at the end of my last video, I'm going to be working on my own robots and stuff like that. So I did this up in Fusion 360, and if you know what that is, then you probably know what these are. And yeah, I think I'm gonna say the basic idea or drawing it up was like in a day, but then test printing it out and then seeing where I need to modify some stuff and what didn't come out right, iterating on it, changing up a couple of things, took another 2 days or something like that. So but for me, that's part of the fun. And yeah, it's like a game in and of itself. How much do you have to offset this? And for me, coming from a engineering background and stuff, so that's, yeah, I like doing that. So I like figuring stuff out. Puzzles, I love puzzles, so why not figure that out? So, is there a Hanabi? I don't know. Yeah, so it's fun well, at least for me, to get in there and moving edges, offsetting things about 1/2 millimeter for clearance and finding tolerance, the right amount of tolerance, and saying, okay, we're going to go with that, and then how much do I need for this part here, and everything is measurements are taken off depending on the size of the screws. And it's like, well, I want to use a screw, or I want to do this, and that's kind of fun. So, well, at least for me. And it's not that hard if you think logically, but let's defund education and make sure everyone is dumb. Go Texas Republicans. Alright. Well, they just want to defund critical thinking classes. They don't want you to critically think and question their judgment because whatever they say is correct. And alright, so yeah, I went a couple different ways with this thing. I'm still working on my Omega Supreme, or version of it. It won't be Omega Supreme, of course, but and let's take a look at this guy here. So this is all one piece, and I did the back panel like that. I took it off a screenshot of the off the game, and I gave him a little haircut there, alfalfa there. And I gave him some wonky eyes, because if he gets angry and spots you, he'll go wonky. I tried to do some kind of symbol there. And on the bottom, which is kind of crappy, because I did a I did supports on there, and I only went maybe 1 or 2 layers. So yeah, it's not really that good. I was gonna put maybe some leather strap in there to hang it, but it'd hang upside down off my whatever backpack or something. So that was a go at it, and I was like, yeah, well, that was okay. I think this took about 3 hours to print at, I think, maybe 20% infill, and yeah, it printed this way, straight up. So the supports down here, when I peeled them off, kind of pulled some of the actual bottom off of that. Well, that's a nice little thing. I liked it. It was a good first attempt. This is my first attempt. I did all the parts. Like, I drew the face, and then I drew these things, and then I kind of started sticking it all together. And I had the intention to do it in pieces and then kind of put it together, but I was like, well, why don't I just test print it out and see how it kind of looks. And yeah, so I took all the parts and combined them and then made one piece and then printed it out, if you know what I'm talking about. And so that was that. I don't know how much it weighs, but kind of chunky little thing. I like it. And so that was attempt number 1. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't give it its tank treads. I thought maybe I'd do that later or do that some other time, but I was like, okay, well, I want to do it again, but I really want to do it in parts this time. And what I did was I took this original one and I tried to chop it up into parts and then cut and pull, and so that I could get panels and stuff, and it was working. I was like, okay, but it started getting really complex because once I started modifying one thing, it would do something else. So I started it over, and I went from scratch, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it from scratch. So I redid the face. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start logically. I want the face to be like this and have the edges like a hexagon, like an octagon. It's an Octostamp, but it's not really one, but it's a kind of a variation on it, an interpretation, an impression of it. And yeah, so I was like, okay, well then if I'm going to have the face this way, and the face, this is actually made of 6 panels. Well, actually, 12 parts. This is 12 parts, plus the screws, and this little thing right there. And yeah, so I made the first part like this, and but the autofocus is terrible. And yeah, it's just a bunch of squares with some offset, like 0.5 millimeter offsets there, and then just pulling them. So not a very common, and it's only 1 millimeter thick, right there at the edge. So I was like, okay, I'll do that, and then I'll make a frame kind of like this, and this is all just one piece, and cut out the inside there. It's like, alright, so then you can take your face and just pop it into the frame like that. And I was thinking, okay, well, I also want to get I want to make the sides some panels, and then the corners, I wanted to do that. But this was going to, my original idea was to just have it go together with friction, like kind of push the parts in and then have it, you know, stick together that way. And I was like, okay, well, it kind of sort of works, but yeah, maybe it won't stick together well. It will come apart, or I'll have to glue it, super glue it together, and it's like, So, the next idea was to use screws. And I thought, well, you know, I want to use some screws, and I want to put I want to use nuts inside of there to hold things together. And one way I've done that in the past is to actually design the nut into the plastic, so when you apply some tension on the screw, it'll pull the nut in, and it will be the nut will be flush in here, and you'll have your screw in there. So yeah, so to do something with the nut, I have to know the size of the nut, and I have to design with enough space around the nut so that it won't just fall off or something like that. It won't move around, so it'll be, you know, set in place. And to do that, oh, this is becoming a lot longer than I thought. You have to know the size of the nut, and a 3mm nut is about 5.5 millimeters wide. So plus about 1.5 millimeters on each side, that's about 3 millimeters. So you're looking at maybe 9 millimeters or 1 centimeter width, and you can put a nut inside of that and have that as a nice stable firm place. But to do 1 centimeter, you have to scale up a lot. So that was at a 3 millimeter, and then I thought, okay, why not? And I printed that out, and it's like, okay, well, that's how big it's going to be. So you're going to have a face which is like this big. And just to do the face on something like that, at this scale, I think it was about a maybe 3-hour print. And that's like almost no infill and very low profile and stuff like that. So the thing was going to take 3 hours for one face times 6. You're looking at, what is 3 times 6? You're looking at like almost 8 hours of printing. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's about 8 hours. It's like 3 times 6. And so I was like, well, crap. So I thought maybe I should just go down to a smaller diameter screw and nut system and bolt thing, and it's like, okay, well, I went down to 2 millimeters, and that was okay. I actually didn't even use, I threaded into the plastic, not using the nut. But the 2 millimeter nut is only about 4 millimeters wide, so it's smaller, so that may be 6 millimeters. So it's like, okay, well, 6 millimeters is smaller than 10 millimeters, because I'm not Donald Trump. And I designed that way. And this is a corner piece here. I designed it so that the screw would go in through the front there and into through the face. I actually made a little hole in the corners here so that the screw could go in through there and into the end right there, like that. And I even designed it so that the inside of that will allow for like a little tiny screw nut, so I could screw in that way. But I'm looking at like half of a millimeter in tolerance, and yeah, a little bit of sloppy printing, and really small stuff. So if I wanted to get it to work, I could do it, but I'd have to like do some sanding, and yeah, the tolerance is really small. So I just screwed it in without the actual nut, and it still worked. And yeah, so I made a bunch of panels, and this is a bad guy. So I thought, well, it should be purple, and it should have its bad guy logo on there. So as you can see there, he's a bad guy. And yeah, I put like a 3mm hole at the top here, so I can put something like this in there. And also I was thinking about doing the tracks on the bottom. So I wanted to be able to swivel his head around, look around. I don't think he can actually do that, like in the game, but I think that would be cool. And also, I was also thinking, why not see about making him a remote control car? So like one of those tiny little remote control cars, just plop him on top of that and go. That'd be pretty funny. Yeah, so being that I made this one out of panels, you can just pull out, swap out the parts, and you want to put make it out of different colors, and you can do that. And it also lends itself, being assembled, it also lends itself to painting, because, well, this is clear purple plastic, and show you how. You can see that. Oh shit, robot just went over. And you can see that I used like a grid infill. And on the back. So yeah, it's pretty lightweight. It's all hollow. There's no infill in here, only on these parts. So you can put something in there like light and like this. You're like, well, Ruben, I don't, that's a little bit high tech. I don't know about all that. Well, this, this light here, which is pretty fucking bright, it cost me a whole $100, like $1. So you can find some cheap lights, and it's got that nice little, just, if you want to put some kind of trigger in the design, like a little button you can push in there and then light this thing up. That might be pretty fun. And finally, you put your, go to the hardware store and pick up something like this. And you can see it's 3mm by 10mm by 1 centimeter. And I think this cost me like $1.50 for like, how many? 4 of these little hooks. So yeah, you put in a little lock nut, lock nut at the inside of that, and I think you're pretty good to go. That's not going to come out, and you spin it around, a little bit of looseness, and you got your own custom theme. So it's almost been a year with my 3D printer, and It's been a very good experience for me. You can pick them up now for almost like around $200, and I think that's some that will function for $200. I think it's a good idea to have a 3D printer if you are creative. If you're like, okay, well, I want to do this thing and this thing. Even if you're not so creative, like doing some kind of mashup like this, I think they're also good for making little things for the house. Like, oh, I probably need a thing that does the thing, and you can't find it. It's like, oh, I wish somebody had a thing that did this special thing, or like a hook that would fit here, or like a little latch that would go to this thing. That makes the 3D printer very nice. And for me, like I've said for years, like, why don't the companies make the things that we want to buy? They just seem to make like some stuff. It's like, yeah, 80% of the people will buy that, but I don't want that. I want a thing that is like this. Okay, well, if you're like that, well, then you need to maybe make your own thing. And this is another thing I'm working on here. And you're like, well, that looks kind of weird. Yeah, I know it does. If you've ever played Guild Wars, which is my MMORPG, Robot Adventures in Guild Wars, you can make your own Super Adventure box there. So, yeah, you can open it up and put stuff in there. Put your stuff in there. See, that's also hollow. So this, I made this before I made this. And I thought, well, that's pretty good size. And you can see how that's just held together by friction. And that's, it's not really held together well. You tap that thing will fall apart. So, but this thing is held in by screws. So, and the way I did the panels, they're like overlapping each other underneath. So they're pretty. I don't think that's going to come apart. And even if it does come apart, if one of the parts breaks, I can print out a face or something, a replacement part in like 20 minutes or something like that. I think the rims print out in like 20 minutes. I want to say this front face here, because it's a little bit thick, is about 40 minutes, somewhere around there. The bottom parts are, the corners here are like 20 minutes. So, about 30 minutes per part. Not too long. I guess if you're doing part by part, 5 hours. And then some sanding and some touching up. Yeah, I think you could, if you printed out this in ABS and used a little bit of acetone to smooth it out, and then went over it with some sandpaper, and you could detail the ink out of it. Hey, see how I did that? Hey. So yeah, I really like the game. Yeah, I like the game too. Sometimes I play like a sniper, and I just stand there all game and just wait until somebody comes, and then I miss them, but then I'll just wait some longer, and then I'll just stand there and not really move around or cover the ground with ink. I'll just wait. That's the way I like to play. So it's kind of like a 3v4 situation where I'm a fucking loser. I mean wiener, because I am a wiener. And sometimes I like to, when I get killed, I like to just stand there and shoot the same bit of floor over and over. Just like make sure it's covered and then look up. Or sometimes I don't even look up. I just sit there shooting the same bit of floor and walking really slowly, shooting floor. I like playing like that. Or sometimes I'll just wait and shoot people instead of trying to cover the ground, because I don't know what the rules of the game are. Or I don't want them. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. I like the face palming in the game when you lose, because you're like, oh, yeah. It's like, what are you guys doing? There should be a way to block like people who just shoot the same bit of floor over and over. It's like, okay, you got to cover a whole bunch of area. Don't cover this one little tiny corner. Like, I'm gonna go play some more. Alright guys, so yeah, what I want to do is maybe I want to make do some live stream where I make something like this. Like, okay, well, let's design it up. The designing is also fun. Like I said, it's like I really like doing that too. It's like, well, that's kind of like that, and that looks kind of good like that. So maybe maybe it'd be interesting and maybe helpful. Yeah, you can teach yourself how to make a thing. But you need the 3D printer to print it out. So you got your idea, you draw it up, and then you print it out. And it's like, hey, I made the thing that I wanted to make because no one else made it for me. Alright, good. I guess you can make an Autobot, but these are the bad guys. Unless you convert them into a good guy. Alright guys, that was just this thing. You can find this thing on my thingiverse, maybe if I put that link up there, and the Super Adventure Box. I want to put those up on Thingiverse, Robot Adventures at Thingiverse. Right now I think I've got mostly just parts for the 3D printer, I think. Look into it. It's holiday season coming up. Maybe you get a 3D printer, and then we can really start, taking back, the figures that we want. So, I want to make this. All right, well, let's make it. All right, guys. Come by. Bye-bye. So, I wonder how, I've never seen a video where people start making their own, toys from I have seen cosplay stuff where like, oh yeah, I took this thing and I made a thing like that, and maybe cosplay is okay, but everyone's heard, well, not everyone, but if you are into watching information about games, you know that this company Pretendo is infamous for going after anything like, oh, you did something that involved our thing, so take it out. And yeah, I don't know how that works. I mean, it's kind of shit. I mean, you can't. I guess if you did a cosplay about Mario, maybe they want to take it down. It's like, oh no, you can't just show people how to make a Mario. So yeah, I'm interested to see what happens if I show you how to make a thing that looks like that, a box. Will it be taken down, or will it be like, oh yeah, let's watch the guy make the thing that's kind of inspired by, or an impression of our cultural influence, and as an art piece or something, I don't know where those lines are drawn, but and so next I'll show you the pictures of the thing that I like, and maybe that will get it taken down, or maybe I'll just put it in the corner, and that thing kind of looks like that thing. And then that thing over there, that blue thing, kind of looks like that other blue thing. And I still got some work to do on the blue thing and the purple thing. I want to put some tank treads or a race car frame on that and just have that be the head. And then the blue thing, I need to put the controls on that, like the little side control stuff. So, and you're like, well, why is there a big white thing over there? Well, I thought maybe if I went transparent white, and then shine the light through it with the blue, fuse blue light, fuse the yellow and the white, and would it come out blue? And it does come out blue in the dark, but in daylight it looks like this. So, and I did make it so I could pop that off, and I made one of them where I couldn't pop it off. So that one I can't pop off. So I did this way. Shit, this video's going long. I did it this way so that I could just print one stud pattern here, one pattern, and then when you assemble it, you take your pattern and put it on the base like that way, and then when you put it on the next part, you can rotate it that way, or you can rotate it that way, so that you'll have the pattern on there in slightly a different way, and it'll look more randomized. And then, or I guess you could go into the file and then remake it. I don't know. I think this way is easier, and you just have to print the same thing over and over. But then if you want to glue it down or something. But anyway, those. I'm getting off. All right, guys. Talk to you guys later. Bye bye. And sometimes I ignore the ground right next to the starting area, and I just run off into battle and get killed over and over, and then we end up losing because nobody did any of the ground right next to the starting area. And then sometimes when you robot fight your way all the way over to the back of the enemy starting area, and you jump up on the thing, and you manage to sneak back there, and then you call for help. I ignore that, and then I just continue to shoot the same bit of ground over and over, and die a lot. Sometimes I do that, and sometimes when I'm standing there not doing anything, and you run by on the roller, painting the ground like you're supposed to do, and somebody sneaks up behind you and shoots you, I just stand there like a dumbass, and I don't try to kill them, or I do. I try to, but I'm really stupid and I can't kill them, and then I end up dying, and then I'll stand there again, not doing anything. And sometimes when you are playing Overwatch and you set up a teleporter, I ignore that teleporter and run all the way back to the battle the long way, because I'm really smart. And yeah.